Welcome to episode 79 of the Sports Geek podcast. On this week's podcast, I catch up with Richard Irvine from New Zealand Cricket, getting ready for the Cricket World Cup. And we recap Asian Cup 2015 with Matt Bartolo.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who has interviewed 100 sports business executives on this podcast, Sean Callanan.
Thank you very much, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and thank you very much for listening to the Sports Geek podcast. This is episode 79, and that's right. I did not realise, and I realised actually while I was having this interview this week that I've had 100 guests. So very much a big shout out to all of the guests of the Sports Geek podcast. You definitely help make this podcast what it is. Thank you again. My name's Sean Callanan. Already said that. You should know that by now after 79 episodes. You can tweet me at Sean Callanan. Tell me that where and when you're listening to, and also tell me what platforms you're listening to. Sports Geek podcast is available on iTunes, Stitcher, Audio Boom, and also Pocket Cast is now a link. I can give you a link directly to the Pocket Casts. I'm a big fan of the Pocket Casts app. I used it when I was in iPhone land, and I'm definitely using it now as an Android app. So you can simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/pocketcasts to check out the Pocket Cast app and to check out Sports Geek Podcast on the Pocket Cast app. Oh, there you go. That's enough of the short plugs that aren't so short. This week, I caught up with Rich Irvine, who's over in New Zealand getting ready for the Cricket World Cup. Talked about what he is planning with the Black Caps. The Cricket World Cup is about to get started tomorrow. I'm recording this final intro on the Friday and hopefully get it out tomorrow before the first game. So we talked to Rich about his time at Cricket New Zealand and some of the things he's learned from his background working in telco land. And then before Matt Bartolo leaves, we recap a very successful Asian Cup. We had Michael Brown, the CEO, on episode 73. So I catch up with Matt to just talk about some of the results from a digital point of view and really dive deep on the Facebook ad work that we did and the success that we had. But first, here's Richard Irvine from New Zealand Cricket to talk all things Cricket World Cup on the Sports Geek podcast. Very happy to introduce, just prior to the World Cup of Cricket kicking off this weekend, Richard Irvine, who is the digital manager for New Zealand Cricket. Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, Rich.
Thanks, Sean. Happy to be here.
We are now, we're recording this on a Wednesday. I'm actually heading off to Twitter is having a World Cup party tonight, so hopefully catching up with the one and only Shane Warne, who's a bit of a phenomenon on Twitter. So if I can get a selfie with Warney, I think the night is a success. What's the feeling like in New Zealand and at New Zealand Cricket for the upcoming World Cup?
Wow, I just want to get on with it now. I've been planning it for a long time, obviously a few years now, and we're just about there. Got the opening event tomorrow night down in Christchurch, and then the big kickoff on Saturday, and at Hagley Oval, which is looking fantastic. A whole lot of extra seating, and just got a really good feeling around it. So yeah, just want to get stuck into it.
So for the people who are listening in the UK, who obviously know their cricket, and the English cricket team is down here, but really for the listeners in the US, this is the one-day format of cricket. Now, we spoke to Dan Magala a couple of episodes ago talking about Big Bash cricket, which is 20 over a side, which is the extreme shortened form version of cricket. But this is the one-day cricket. The World Cup happens every 4 years in the same way it does for rugby and football, and so Australia and New Zealand are the co-hosts of this World Cup. So there'll be preliminary games and finals and the like in Australia and New Zealand. So both countries are working together in hosting it. And so what has New Zealand Cricket done? I've been reading that you've been doing some tech upgrades behind the scenes to make sure that you're ready for this traffic around the World Cup.
Yeah, so we switched over. We've given the website a pretty thorough overhaul in the last couple of years. First step was the front end of it, what our fans see, which is making it mobile responsive. We obviously get huge traffic on mobile, tablets and phones, and that's especially so during the evening. I think your average fan, I would say, if they're following the game, would be on their desktop or laptop at work during the day, and then at around 5 or 6 o'clock we see the traffic completely switch around to phones and tablets. So we wanted to obviously make the website ready for them to give a great experience. So that was the first step. Second step was the back end. First, we moved to an Umbraco content management system, which is a nice, clean, modern system, and then also switched everything over to Microsoft Azure servers for our scoring, for our editorial content, and also for our video as well. So bring it on. We're expecting quite a lot of traffic, so and we'll be stable and ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, I had the chat with Finn Bradshaw at Cricket Australia, and they've gone through the same process of really, updating their website. The responsive was the killer part that they looked at for their site. And I was just looking at some of the stats that you guys had for blackcaps.co.nz if you want to check it out. 152% increase last year, and it was the mobile views up 221% from last year. So I mean, everyone's moving to that space, and you've got to have a product that's usable in that space. So since you've moved to that mobile, the responsive site, have you seen things like shares and the traffic coming back? From Facebook and Twitter and the like, because for mine, if you get that mechanism right and you put the content and make it shareable on those platforms, sometimes you're getting 1 or 2 more people coming back for every share. Are you seeing that type of that flow on effect from the social networks?
Yeah, it's just increasing all the time. I mean, we do want people to come back to our website, from all our social areas. So yeah, we do see that coming through, and especially around match days. We want people to. I mean, your mobile phone or your tablet is kind of like the must-have for watching cricket. It lends itself to keeping one eye on the screen and one eye on your other screen. So yeah, we do see that, and try to make it shareable for the fans and something that's valuable.
Yeah, I mean it is exactly the same. Again, for the US listeners, it's very similar to baseball in the digital experience, because you have those natural breaks in play, both whether you're at the stadium or whether you're at home, to be able to check your phone and engage. Whereas continuous sports like basketball or rugby or Australian rules don't have those natural breaks in play for you to engage. So it's a real opportunity for cricket that you can be going backwards and forwards with the fans on a social side of things, but they can also be consuming content, whether it's watching a six from the previous over, or rewatching the wicket, or having their banter with their mates while they're watching the game.
Totally. Yep.
So your background before you were at Cricket New Zealand, you worked for Telecom New Zealand. So what kind of lessons, going from a telco provider that are really customer service focused, and that's really one of the things they're using social and digital for, what kind of lessons did you take away from that environment, and then getting into the sports environment and seeing how the two sort of businesses operate differently?
It's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of things that are different, but a lot of things that are the same. I mean, I brought my general approach to social media across, in that it is literally a social medium. You're not there to just talk at people. Like, you've got to be interactive, you've got to be available, you've got to answer the hard questions. Which you obviously got quite a few in telco land at all hours of the day and night. But it's the same over here. We do take the social part very seriously, and want to be available for fans. Whether it's letting people know what's going on or answering their queries. And I think one of the things that I enjoy in a kind of perverse fashion is like crises. When things go wrong, that's kind of when it gets exciting, really. So we obviously had quite a bit of that at Telecom, but also every now and again at cricket as well, which has stood me and the team in good stead. Being able to keep a cool head and still think strategically and offer good advice is a valuable skill, kind of wherever you're at, whether that's telecommunications or on or in sport, of course. So luckily, the team's going very well lately, so we haven't had to do too much of the firefighting just recently. So, the touch wood, long may it continue.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. I'm sure there's a few people who are listening that go into that fetal position and roll on the floor after a big loss, and they see the torrent of I call it fan passion, but it's a lot of fans venting and calling for the heads of players, and sometimes it's just a good place to put the phone away, go for a long walk, and in 15 minutes you're a lot calmer, and the fans start getting over it because there will be another game.
That's right.
You've got to learn. You've got to have a pretty thick skin if you're running the social accounts for a team, especially if they are having a rough trot or having a few losses. Being able to turn that a little bit and eke the positives out of it, and also embrace the fans that are positive about it. One of the things I did want to note, and I've been listening to Gary Vaynerchuk's Ask Gary V podcast a lot recently. I was listening to it on the run this morning, and one of the ways he grades the way that people are doing it, just from a Twitter point of view, is he always goes and checks the tweets, but then he also checks the replies and how they're engaging. And I'm currently looking at the Black Caps Twitter account, and there's lots of Twitter replies, a lot of you answering back to fans specific questions and giving them ideas or pointing in the right direction for tickets. What kind of schedule do you sort of put on the Black Caps account to say how often are you going to reply? What time limits? How many people do you have behind the scenes that are helping keeping that account ticking over?
Yeah, good question. I mean, during matches, we have a schedule of people that are literally covering the game, i.e. giving score updates, or probably a bit more than that, posting photos, letting people know what conditions are like and all the things that you can't find out from a scorecard, trying to add a bit extra. There's me and a couple of other guys that do that during matches, which I've got to say, it's one of the most fun parts of the job. Covering a match and bantering with fans and things like that. It's just awesome. So really enjoy that. Outside of that, it's mainly me. Keeping an eye on things, because obviously things don't, issues or things happen outside of match time as well. So, and again, that's kind of a hangover from telco land. You've always got your little phone there, your little mate kind of blinking at you saying, something's happening on Twitter. So, and mainly Twitter for us, as well as other platforms. But you've got to be all over that. I think it's very beneficial to take a break every now and again, but it is fairly 24/7 proposition. So it's it's challenging, but also a lot of fun. So
it can be all consuming. I did want to ask you sort of the reasoning behind it is something more from it that I see a lot in brand land, I guess is one way of putting it, is putting the initials of who's replying on a lot of the tweets. So you'll have RI, so we know it's Rich or CE. And again, I don't know all your team, but
that's Callum. Yep.
So again, what's the reasoning behind that? Because a lot of teams sort of try to give this, we are the team, and you won't know who it is because we're getting that consistency of voice. Is that just is that a habit from telco land? Is it how have the fans responded to that?
Well, yes, it is. I mean, it's a transparency thing. I mean, we're not the Black Caps team. I mean, if the team's in the middle, we're not. They're not tweeting the score kind of thing. So what I wanted to do was just sort of say, hey, look, these are we are people that work at New Zealand Cricket, and you can literally tell who it is. And to me, that's transparency and a social thing. So to try and create a kind of a person-to-person interaction, very powerful in telco land, especially just for showing that you weren't speaking to a faceless, nameless corporation. You were speaking to a person that was working there, that was passionate, that cared. And it's flowed through to this. I think fans do respond to it. That they can kind of tell who's on at any one time. Everyone's got their own kind of style and their own way of doing it. We do get a few questions about what does it mean. Not everyone's familiar with it, but we've got a little page on the website that kind of explains what we're up to. I think it's a valuable part of what we offer. And
I think going back to that, I guess that painful part of the social experience for some sports teams, especially if you're going through a crisis or you're going through that losing streak, and there's that want and need for the fans to vent. And we've all seen those posts of, if you guys didn't spend so much time tweeting, you'd do better on the park, and you shake your head. But when you reply with a with the personal initials, they're not. It's not directed at the coach or the player that it was intended to, and so potentially you could start forming that personal relationship. Be empathetic with them and saying, "Yep, we feel your pain," because there's a person behind it. So it gives you, and that's effectively a tactic that telcos are trying to use, that it's a person, not a robot, and that kind of thing. But you can also use that to say, hey, I'm writing this tweet, I'm a fan, I'm working for, New Zealand cricket. We're there with you, whether it's, both on the winning side where you're celebrating, but also on that, when you're in that crisis mode, they're a little bit less likely to, have a go as hard when they start knowing the people behind the scenes.
Absolutely. I mean, we have done a couple of, tweet ups, if it's a kind of a weird term, but tried to get a few of our most passionate fans along, either into the office, or we did one at the team hotel down in Wellington, just to meet people. I do try and when we're at games and things like that, try and get around and kind of take a session off and do a lap of the ground and try and meet up with a few of the fans that are there. I mean, hopefully it's beneficial for everyone. We meet each other, and hey, we're all just cricket fans. I just so happen to kind of work for the organisation. So we put a lot of work into trying to foster an online community, and I think the hard work kind of comes back to us. So it's been beneficial for us.
Yeah, I think that's terribly beneficial in engaging. I do get pitched a lot of tools that say, we want to find your most influential fans and your fans that tweet the most and your fans that are most engaged. And from a sports point of view, I normally go back to them and say, the guys who are on the tools, the guys who are running the accounts, they know those people. They see all those tweets. Now, again, it's great for a big brand that doesn't have this passion directed at it, that they could, because you've got to see it for all the noise. But from a sports team point of view, and I'd love the feedback from anyone who's listening. I have no doubt that most people who are running a team's Twitter account can list 25 accounts that they know that if they said, "Hey guys, would you please come to Bay 12 for this game?" that those fans would come, and providing them a little bit of access behind the curtain is a great way to get them to buy into what you're trying to do. So if you've got a campaign that's going to be pushed out, or you're pushing out something on a new platform, these guys, and I like to call them like your digital cheer squad, they're going to be the ones that push it out the first time.
Absolutely. So, I guess one of the things that helped me with this. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, okay. You were saying?
I was just going to. One of the things that helped me was the fact that one of the things that helped me with this job was that wasn't that long ago that I was one of the passionate fans, either tweeting away on Twitter, or I had a bit of a sports blog as well that was kind of satirical and things, and I used to keep a very close eye on both obviously the team, but then also how the how things would run, either sponsorship wise or social media wise and things like that. So it was kind of it was an interesting moment in the job interview when my future manager came in and said, "Oh, we've just been reading your blog." I was like, "Oh, great!" So again, put it all down to fan passion, I guess, and it's all kind of worked out. So
it is a good way. I mean, again, if people are saying, "How do I get involved?" I do know a lot of people that have got their first jobs in sport by being a fan and being vocal and showing that they're using the platforms. That's a really good resume. Like, if you were to come to a organisation and say, yes, I want to work for New Zealand Cricket, and you go and look at their Twitter feed and it's like they've never tweeted about cricket before in their life, it's not a prerequisite for a job. Like, I've had people move into new roles with new sports, but if they're not using the platforms and showing that they can use them and showing that they can engage, then I'm always going to take the person that is engaging and using the platforms and showing their passion, because it can easily be translated. So, I'm always one for, the phrase, use the bloody tools, because when you get in control of, whether it's the Black Caps Twitter handle with 100,000 followers, you want to know what you're doing. You want to know some of the mechanics and you want to know some of the tricks of the trade. And there's nothing better than learning those on your own account.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, and it's sort of, sorry, you go.
So what I wanted to do before we finish up, because I know you've got a lot to do for this Cricket World Cup, is there any themes or specific campaigns or any hashtags you're going to be driving throughout the Cricket World Cup?
There's a couple of things. We've just recently launched our My Black Caps membership club, which is getting people to join the club, and in return they get access to clips from all the games on either on their machine or on our mobile app. They also get like our newsletter, ticketing offers and merchandise as well. So My Black Caps is kind of the big sort of push. It's been out there a couple of weeks. So trying to spread the word and take advantage of all the interest in Cricket World Cup.
So it's very much a data capture and build up your profile for all things New Zealand cricket.
Absolutely, yeah. So, we'd like to just sort of know a bit more, I guess, about fans and what they're interested in. So, it's a good way for people to, get on our database, I guess, and hopefully get a better experience supporting the Black Caps at the same time. So,
And so that's a great initiative, and it's a really great initiative to do around a big tournament, like launching it now. You're going to get all this traffic. I went to the site this morning and, one of the first things is a splash screen says, hey, sign up for My Black Caps. Like, you will get a lot of fans going, yes, I want to be involved. I know it worked really well for the Socceroos around the World Cup, where they were sending out daily emails to keep everyone up to date what was happening in the World Cup over in Brazil. Because you're getting that real attention at that time, it's the best time to make that ask. And from a social point of view, is there any hashtags or anything in particular you're trying to get more fans to do on social?
Yeah, I mean, back to Black Caps is our hashtag for the tournament. We want to get people to get behind the team, and we've sort of we'll have a few spot prizes for fans that are using that, and then we've also enlisted a few more well-known fans, I guess, to back the Black Caps as well. So that's our theme for the tournament. We've got a little bit coming out in the next couple of days on that for the opening match. So then as well as just our normal content on the website, all the tweets and updates around the matches. So it's going to be a busy time. So looking forward to it.
So I will wish you luck, but not too much luck, because I'm still an Australian at heart. For people who don't know, and this is a shout out to both my listeners in Australia, New Zealand, and Tinnis over there in South Africa. Australia are favourites. South Africa are second favourites, and New Zealand are third favourites according to betting markets. So hopefully you will. So if New Zealand make the final, will you make the trek over to Melbourne?
I'll be doing everything in my power to be there. We don't want to count our chickens, but I'd absolutely die to be there. I'll be at a few of the games here in New Zealand, all right. So, and including the New Zealand Australia match, which all of New Zealand's looking forward to. So, be awesome.
Okay, Rich. Well, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing the tweets. Where can people find you on the internet? What's your Twitter handle, and what are the best ways for people to connect with you?
I'm Rich Irvine on Twitter, and I've also got my own. I've got a couple of sites, but sportreview.net.nz is my sport blog. So if anyone fancies a kind of a lower grade coverage of events, then they can go and have a look at that one. So
no problems. We'll have links to everything related to Rich. Please connect with him and connect with all of my guests. I've now passed. I should have raised the bat. I didn't even realise the last episode. I've passed the 100 guest mark. I should have raised the bat to the pavilion. So you are now in the second 100 of.
Nice.
I'm going forward to 200 guests. So thanks very much, Rich, for coming along, and best of luck for the Cricket World Cup.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Appreciate it.
Sign up for the Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/SGN.
Thanks again to Rich Irvine. You can follow Rich at Rich Irvine, and you can also follow the Black Caps at Black Caps on Twitter, and check out what they're doing. And keep an eye on the Cricket World Cup by using the hashtag CWC15. That's the hashtag for the tournament. And I did go to the Twitter Australia launch, and where they were launching a new version of the Twitter app, and I'm assuming that it works. If you're following the hashtag in the US, it would definitely work in the UK. So obviously a real big push for Twitter to get growth in the subcontinent, India being one of the biggest nations and absolute lovers of cricket. I've spoken about it previously with, they did some work with the Digigraph stuff with Sachin Tendulkar, a famous Indian cricketer. So if you search on the hashtag CWC15, you'll see the integration with the sport. So really interested to see how it's received both by the fans, but then also by the sports. Are we expecting to see Twitter provide this kind of integration with other sports? Will we see it happen in the NFL? Will we see it in the NBA? Maybe around tennis, around the Grand Slams, and other local sports like the AFL and NRL. Be really interested to see if that's the kind of stuff that Twitter is going to start offering, and really see where Twitter is going to position itself overall as a product, because they're starting to put in more and more functionality into the Twitter app that maybe sports are putting into their own apps. So there might be a little bit of a battle in the near future with, especially broadcasters and things like that, especially as things like Twitter video grows and more fans start using it. So keep an eye out. What are your thoughts? Send us a tweet at Sean Callanan. I'd love to hear what you think. And I did. If you did check my Instagram feed, I've decided to dive in and start using my personal Instagram again at Sean Callanan. I did get that selfie with Shane Warne, thanks to, wasn't exactly a selfie. Brian Gibson was kind enough to take the photo, but I did get the shot with Shane Warne. And hopefully when I'm in seat in London, we've got Mike Gadding speaking. I will get the matching set. Mike Gadding, known as the other person involved in the ball of the century. For the people in the US, I will link to the YouTube clip that I had to show Christine when she was in Melbourne to fully understand the legend that is Shane Warne. I'm very happy right now to quickly chat with Matt Bartolo, literally before the cab turned up to take him to the airport on holidays after he'd finished up with the Asian Cup, where we recap some of the digital successes of the Asian Cup 2015. Very happy to welcome a good mate of mine who's worked very hard at the Asian Cup and is now basking in the success of the Asian Cup in Australia. Matthew Bartolo, welcome to the Sports Geek podcast.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be here.
And thank you very much. For those who don't know, the Asian Cup has been a big success. I had Michael Brown, the CEO, on a previous episode prior to the Asian Cup. Massive success. I've been talking it up on the podcast. You've now finished up with the Asian Cup, and I think we might have a boarding call soon. You're practically at the airport, ready to have a well-earned break.
Yes. It's been sort of a great 15 months for me. But yeah, it's time now that it's all wrapped up. Great success, as you said. And yeah, departing very shortly, actually, probably about a couple of hours from now.
Yeah, so we will keep this short and sweet. We caught up last week to sort of recap how things went. We pretty much worked on, over the last 15 months, of really building awareness for the Asian Cup in Australia, but then also, it was all about the cheeks and the seats, as Katie Morgan from the Texas Rangers likes to say. We had to get people going to the games, and a really big part of that was the stuff that we did on Facebook. Do you want to sort of take everyone through what the landscape looked like when you came on board with the Asian Cup?
Yeah, so we only had about 90,000 followers on the official page, with just under 4,000 of those being Australian, which was about 4%. So we obviously wanted to build a strong local base to get them engaged, inform them about the tournament, and then eventually sell them tickets. So yeah, there was 90,000 followers when we started, and we sort of cranked that up to 230,000 at the end of the year. And the tournament started January 9. So we added about 140,000, but the main part of that was adding 66,000 Australian fans, well, taking it to 66,000, so getting it up to 29% of that audience, which was obviously key for us.
Yeah, and one of the, some of the things that we did do in that space is we leveraged some really key audiences around the Socceroos and around the World Cup, and really embraced the FFA's football family to make sure that they were aware. We always knew that football fans were going to be excited about the Asian Cup, but we also wanted to make sure that we were attracting other fans. I should neglect to mention Matt is practically a gun for hire. You had a late start at the Asian Cup because you came straight from Sochi, and you're working with the Australian Olympic Committee over in Sochi. What was that experience like in that 2 weeks of madness in Russia?
Yeah, I've done the London Olympics and then the Sochi Olympics as well, and doing a varied media role with a lot of social media in there. It's great. It's you're a part of the sport as it happens. You're sort of, a lot of it's live tweeting, that type of thing, keeping everyone updated back home, especially with Sochi, which was sort of in the middle of the night, but not a lot of people knew a heap about it. So it was very well consumed on social media, especially Twitter. And I think we were the fourth most sort of social country, for no better way of explaining it,
yep.
When we were there amongst all of these massive nations. So, we did really well. It was a great experience. You learn the sort of on the go, need to be first out, that type of thing when you're on the run with these types of events.
Whereas, the role with the Asian Cup was slightly different. You're working with the local organising committee, headed up by Michael Brown, on the ground in Australia, but the World Cup being run, the Asian Cup, I should say, being run by the AFC, you had to work with them as a overarching body, but really you were having that focus on Australia and what content works for Australian. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that sort of relationship started? Because it was a little bit of push and pull, trying to figure out what's going to work for the Australian market and then what's going to work for the broader Asian Cup audience.
Yeah, definitely. We wanted, like I said at the start, we wanted to get as many Australians involved as well, but we also wanted the wider sort of AFC landscape, the Asian continent, to get involved as well. A lot of our focus, we were obviously strongly focused on the local market. AFC was strongly focused on growing the brand and the Asian Cup in the wider Asian market. We were keen to get as much Australian content out there as possible. They were keen to sort of do, a bit more varied stuff with the different Asian nations that didn't have too much relevance to us back home. But in the sake of trying to get as much reach as possible, we sort of came to the conclusion that we'd start running things where we'd hit Australia in the peak time zones. Generally during the day, our peak time zones was sort of 12 midday, and then in the evening between 7 and 9. And then we tried to publish a lot of the sort of wider Asian content at that 11 o'clock midnight mark Australian time. So we capture the main segment of that audience and try not to overreach with the Australian audience with how much content we were putting up a fair way out from the tournament when we didn't want to sort of saturate everyone.
Yeah, so it was a combination of sort of, I mean, with Facebook we were able to use the geo-targeting options to say this is a post that's just going out to Australia, but we also but you don't have that option on Twitter. So we did do a lot of stuff based on time zones. We knew that this would be fine for the Australian market and the Australian time zones, and then we could post stuff for more, for the Middle East and the Asian markets later at night when we knew most of Australia was in bed. So it was a bit of a dance to get those time zones and when to use the geo-targeting stuff. But in the end, I think it worked out quite well, and then it also fit in quite well with what you were doing from an advertising point of view, because you were then promoting specific posts, especially stuff with videos, the promo video with Timmy Cale, and those kind of things, and re-advertising and making sure that a really big segment of the Australian market was seeing that content.
Yeah, definitely. So we probably spent about 10 grand in the end on various paid campaigns to increase engagement, which also achieved our other goal of getting the awareness out there. Obviously, early on, not too many people knew about the Asian Cup. Obviously, we've changed their minds by the end of it. The soccer has helped out, obviously.
Yep.
But yeah, so we spent about 10 grand to increase engagement. 81,000 likes, video views, clicks, comments came from that, as well as informing audiences and driving traffic to the website, which was one of our goals, to get them on there, get engaged, and eventually buy tickets. So we got 15,000 click-throughs for that budget as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that was, we fought with the geeks, the guys building the website, was to get some of those conversion pixels installed and those custom audience pixels installed, so we could then advertise to people who had checked out the website, who had piqued their interest for buying a ticket. We were constantly building up these lists of people that had been drawn in by a really cool video or a cool piece of content, but then we could come back to them later down the track with, as Gary V would say, with the right hook, with the ticket sale. So that was really important for us to be building that list. Even if it wasn't an email list, it was also this list of people who'd visited the site.
Yeah, definitely. We came back to those at the end and sort of hit them with our ads. And as we'll discuss, those pixels really helped in our return on investment, which was quite high in terms of ticket sales. Yeah,
so diving into those numbers, like again, from we had the battle with the tech guys from the web point of view with the Asian with the AFC website, but then we also went into battle with because I think it always is a battle, but to get the conversion pixels installed with the Ticketek site, so we could track the transaction all the way through to a sale. And that's, I know from experience, there's a lot of teams that have difficulty getting that set up. It's well worth the fight, because you can then see the justification. You want to take us through some of the numbers that, from a budget point of view, that you ran in like December, January, when you're in that peak period of selling tickets?
Yeah, so we ended up spending just over $16,000 between December and January, the majority of that being in January. Tournament ran from January 9 to January 31, so we're really pushing different ads that we sort of were making on the go. We converted the 16,000 to 114,000 in ticket sales, which was a return on investment just over 700%. In terms of the final, we spent just over $1,000 and converted that into just over 8,000 in ticket sales, which was closer to 800% in return on investment. From what you've told me, these seem like good numbers, but definitely there is scope to sort of pump more budget into those sort of spaces when you're looking at the sort of return on investment being 700, 800%, that type of thing.
And that's the thing. I mean, when I had the conversation with Brownie, with Michael Brown, we were having the discussion of how can we better pitch these ads, and the flexibility that the ads give you is, we ran out that buy some tickets for your friends as a Christmas present, and we were able to run that as a really small campaign, test it out, see if it worked, see if it was getting clicks to begin with. but then looking back at the data to see what type of sales it was getting, and it was a really good way to test out one copy, because we ran so many different variations of copy into different segments of the market, both geographical. Around the Socceroos games, so we wanted people to go to the Socceroos games, but we also wanted to inform the market, how affordable it was going through. I guess one last thing of note that I thought was really effective. I think I called you like the first week of January and said, Matt, what are you doing? What's the go? Like, the Facebook page has gone bananas, and you informed me that the guys at the World Sports Group that work for the AFC had started promoting the page to all the regions, all the countries that were participating in the Asian Cup, and absolutely massive growth happened there from just a simple like campaign, engaging and building excitement around the tournament.
Yeah, definitely. So we, as I said, we sort of handed 230,000. Just a bit of background, WSG came in and ran a lot of the social media during the tournament. So by the end of December, we'd got from 90,000 to 230,000. By the end of the tournament, it had sort of skyrocketed to 670,000. What WSG had did was they saved their budget on sort of getting likes, getting more followers on board until the tournament time. And obviously it ended up being a lot more expensive to buy the Australian likes than what it was to buy places like Iraq and that type of thing. But they saved their budget, spent it at that period, and were getting followers for under 1 cent per like, which was obviously 50 times better than 50 times better than what we could do in the Australian market. So that worked really well, obviously. I think it provides a really good strategy for that, like this event, like it's an event programming. And, I spoke to the guys around the Cricket World Cup and spoke to Rich Irvine at Cricket New Zealand. Like the idea is that when the event comes, that's when all the awareness and, people want to get around it in that really short run up of when it's starting. And so it makes total sense to re-engage all the countries. Now, it just so happens they were targeting countries that there are a stack of people that love their football, which results in very, very much cheap access to a lot of fans. But then that rolled on to tremendous engagement throughout the tournament on all the content that was pushed through. Yeah, definitely. Like we said, it skyrocketed another 300,000. They didn't have to spend too much money. At that point, it's a great time to get everyone on board, get them engaged. Like you said, they know a lot more about the tournament as we sort of hit the last few days. And the one thing we wanted to get a lot of Australian likes, so we could start selling them the tickets in the May sort of period when they first went on sale, when I think about 20% of tickets eventually were sold. But yeah, obviously getting more and more Australians as the tournament went on was obviously great as well, because we were getting them for sort of the latter matches to sell them the sort of higher price tickets to get them to the semis and the final and the Socceroos games.
Yep. So I don't know. We had some noise in the background. If that was your taxi turning up to take it to the airport. I want to quickly wrap this up. From the other platform's point of view, how did you feel things went on Twitter as far as engagement and growth for the accounts over the tournament?
Yeah, skyrocketed during the tournament. Just there was some crazy numbers that we've put together. We sort of started with 11,000 followers when we took over the account. We took that to 36,000 followers before the tournament started, and then it skyrocketed to 113,000 before the tournament finished. There was, when we started, there was probably about 150,000 Twitter impressions a month. By November, we got this up to 2 million, and then from there it just went through the roof. The hashtag was used 315,000 times during the tournament period, hashtag AC 2015. And through January, there were 44 million impressions, 89,000 retweets, 102,000 link clicks, and 71,000 favorites. So it was definitely went berserk. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember in the early days talking to Shane Harmon, who was the 2IC at the time of, having that debate. What should the hashtag be? And I'm like, keep it simple, guys. AC 2015. Once it's up and running and everyone knows it, the amount of engagement around the games and the TV coverage and the ratings that came through, especially for that final, were phenomenal. So, from a Twitter point of view, I thought, the fans really got around it. And then the other one, which was sort of the poor kid brother of all the channels when we started, and you laugh. It's like, should we do Instagram? They're like, because there was absolutely nothing on the account when we started, and we just thought, well, it's a really good way for us to engage, the community, and you have the things like the cup tour and those kind of things. How was the engagement and the amount of content that was coming in from an Instagram point of view over the tournament?
Yeah, so like you said, we sort of came onto it a bit late. We early on, I suppose, we decided to make sure we were doing the platforms that we were doing and do them well. I had a varied role during the job, so I was trying to manage all of this while running the website and doing a lot of content. So by the time we sort of got mid-year, we had a couple of people to help out, and we started pushing Instagram a fair bit more. We took it from under 1,000 followers to about 10,000 by the end of 2014, and that went to over 50,000 by the end of the tournament, and just under 30,000 Instagram images used AC 2015. AC 2015 hashtag. So from something that we sort of put a bit of focus on from August, September until the end of the tournament, we've given the AFC back a really good base for the future, and it was another platform for people to be engaged with.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good lesson for anyone that is, driving these sort of big tournaments. And, I always use the Rugby World Cup example that Shane Harmon was involved in back in 2011, building out an asset that you can hand back and it can just continue to grow from tournament to tournament. That's the big advantage. And, to hand back an asset like you just did there with, from an Instagram point of view, like that's, the guys at the AFC can be keeping that conversation going and sharing that, for the next couple of years around all the qualifiers and things like that. Like, again, no, you've got to go. I just thought, I thought you've done a terrific job. I know how stretched from a resourcing point of view that you were over the last 15 months, and I think you've done a stellar job to get on top of everything from a Facebook ads point of view, as well as, be putting out all the content. There we go. That must be you must have the hyped up Uber car turning up.
Our apartment block, yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
Strata on the weekday.
Yeah. Just to finish up, is there any other people you wanted to thank, key people as part of the team that made the Asian Cup digital efforts, what it was?
Yeah, so Alison Hill sort of oversaw all of government and communications, so she was a good sort of head to lean on throughout the tournament. Luke Byrne helped out with the marketing side of things and ensured we were getting our images and all that sort of thing coming through.
And he was the man that made sure that the Facebook ads accounts just got going, and he's like, we're going to get onto this. So, I thought it was really important to have that executive buy-in to say, yeah, we want to push our chips in on this platform.
Yeah, definitely. Yourself, obviously, one of the leading lights in the business, not only in Australia but around the world, I think, from seeing all that you've done. Just someone great to chat to every now and then to make sure everything was on track.
Thanks, mate.
No worries. Brian Gibson, obviously at FFA and sort of heading up their social program. He was great to just walk up the road and have a quick chat to, see what they were doing, see what we could help out with, and vice versa. And then the guys at WSG, Matt Parker and Kapil Chetri, who ran all the majority of stuff during the tournament and were the ones we were sort of bouncing off with throughout the year to try and make sure everything was we were on top of everything. And then obviously at the top, Michael Brown, who sort of trusted us to sort of run with everything we did. And in the end, we saw some really good results.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for including me in that list. It was a real fun fun 15 months as a project, and I highly agree with you on all the other people involved. Brian at the FFA and all the things that they were doing at the Socceroos. It was really good to work hand in hand and sort of keep an eye on what both were doing, so the plans worked together. So you're obviously now taking a break after a really hectic, 18 months with Sochi prior to the Asian Cup. What are your plans for the next couple of months?
So I'm going away with my wife actually for almost 3 months to South America, which would be really nice. I've spoken to a couple of people, but nothing locked in for when I come back. So hopefully some people will be tapping me on the shoulder by the time I fly back in to sort of get something sorted.
No doubt. As I said, Matt's an absolute gun for hire. I will put links to your LinkedIn account and your Twitter. What's your Twitter so we can follow your adventures in South America?
Oh, yeah, geez. It's at Matt Bartolo, so MATTBARTOLO.
Okay, we'll share that. And if anyone wants to get in touch with Matt when he might be incommunicado, please send me an email and I will make sure that any offers that you're looking for, I'll make sure they get to your inbox, mate.
All right, brilliant. Thanks for that, Sean.
Like the Sports Geek podcast, find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sportsgeek.
Thanks again to Matt Bartolo there, Matt_Bartolo, if you want to follow him on the Twitter. And thanks again for him to catch up with me after he'd finished up at the Asian Cup and before he headed off to the airport on a well-deserved break. Some amazing numbers there, and it really does show you that it's really worth the effort to get those Facebook custom audiences, pixels on your website to start tracking who's coming to your website. And then if you're going to be trying to sell tickets, is to make those hard yards and make those requests to get those Facebook conversion pixels working, because the main thing is, the optimization and the targeting of the right fans is great to help sell more tickets, but also it definitely helps with the reporting. It's so much easier to report how the campaign went to people like Luke Byrne, who was running the marketing, and then further up the chain to guys like Michael Brown, the CEO, to say this is what we did and this is what it resulted in. It makes it's so much easier. So if you want any more information on how we did that, or potentially want to do that yourselves, please get in touch. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. I'm more than happy to talk about it. I'm really passionate about solving this problem of getting more tickets sold via social and learning how to do it in the best possible manner. And really successful campaign with the Asian Cup. A couple more announcements. SB Week. Russell Scabetti in the businessofsports.com. He's launched that. So if there most likely will be an event in a town near you. It's been running across the US. I'm running one in Melbourne with the Sports Biz Melb meetup group. So go to meetup.com and look up Sports Business, and you'll find us in Melbourne. If you don't have a SB Week meetup, please contact Russell, put your hand up and organise one. Russell's looking for someone to do it in Sydney, in Australia, but also anywhere around the world. So it'll be on the week of April 13. So there's plenty of time to plan, and they'll be raising money for the V Foundation, obviously for cancer research. And those who know me know that's a cause very close to my heart. So very happy to support that cause. So other things, the Facebook group, I'm kicking off and getting a bit of more people into the Sports Geek podcast community Facebook group. I've been doing this with the Beers Blokes business community, and it's really working well. A lot of banter backwards and forwards, not the same stuff that you get on a Facebook page. So if you want to join the Facebook group, again, just hit me up and simply ask. Hit me up on Twitter or send me an email and say I want to be involved. More than happy to add people along that. And please, if you are hoping to go to Seat London, like I said last week, there's a few tickets available. Please contact me and I will get in touch with Christine and make sure that you can make it there on March 17. And hopefully we can get that picture with Mike Gadding when he does the keynote speech at the end of the day. That's it from me. Last but not least, I'm not going to do a Sounds the Game this week. I haven't got any, and I really want to hear the sounds of the game from around the world. So next game you go to, whether it is part of the Cricket World Cup, whether it is your local football or a game in your hometown, please pull out your phone. You can record a video and I can take the audio off the video, or simply just record the audio and send it to me. I'd love to include more international sounds of the game. It was great to get reviews coming in from around the world. We're up to 48 reviews on iTunes. Very much appreciate all of them. I'm now using a product called My Podcast Reviews, so I get alerted every time one comes in. So thank you very much for those. And until next week, you're listening to the Sports Geek Podcast. My name is Sean Callanan. Thanks a lot.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Did you know Sports Geek Podcast has listeners in over 50 countries? Thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.